I'm excited to talk with you today, brother, because the topic that we're going to talk about today, I know at least, is near and dear to both of our hearts. And it's how to be a really great parent and still juggle everything that we need to juggle to be a successful entrepreneur. Because most of the people, at least in my circle, are highly driven entrepreneurs, super passionate about scaling great companies. But that same passion that's in them or in us to scale these companies is also inside of us in our personal lives, especially when it comes to being a parent. And I know that you've got multiple successful companies, as well as the Non-Toxic Dad brand, which is currently one of my favorite Instagram channels. So why don't we start with that? Why don't we start about talking about Non-Toxic Dad and why you started it? Because I think that'll really give us a good leeway into being a great parent as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, it's the evolution of an entrepreneur, right? I think we all go through this. You're doing it now because you're coaching folks like me and so many others. You go back into that giving stage. It's the fun of entrepreneurship, but it's also about giving back. So I think as I've grown as an entrepreneur, as a leader, specifically and I'm almost 50, right? And I have a 2-year-old daughter. It's just this shift, this mentality that is shift. It's like, okay, I got sick, really sick, cleaning up hazardous waste for a living in Missoula, Montana, being an environmental consultant, cleaning up hazardous waste, U.S. Forest Service, Army Corps of Engineers, abandoned mine work, like all these things, right? Just to say that story, move in my parents' basement, get sick, get into natural health, get well. Now I'm pissed off. Our indoor environments are making us sick. Wow, way worse than the outdoor environments that I was trying to clean up. Holy shit, we're being lied to. Get impassioned as an entrepreneur, that athletic all-American gene that's in me. It's like, man, let's just grit this out. Let's change the world. Come full circle, non-toxic dad, right? But you mentioned some of the problems in there: family, other people around you, your team, your staff, with such passion, with such strong spiritual energy. There's a movie out there, I will remember it, but it's like there's a quote in it. It says, essentially, if you're seasoned, if you're gritty, if you have that gift as an entrepreneur, you're in a hurricane and you're swimming into the ocean and it doesn't even bother you, but your team next to you is drowning, saying, "What are you doing? Like, you don't have all the gifts. I'm smarter than you, and you're not as talented. You're killing me. You're drowning me." And they're blaming you. It's like, "You're drowning me. You're killing me," and you're like, "It's because of the perspective that we have and the gift that we have." So I'm going to seed that, leave that for you to think about, and we'll come back to that. But that's non-toxic dad. It's this mission that was put into my heart long ago. People have been telling me that I've been non-toxic dad for 15 years. You don't know you're something unless people tell you you're that. You're not a leader until someone calls you a leader, that you're being asked to be on boards. I just got asked to be on a board this weekend with 53 uh, stars from generals, and like along with all these MDs and triple board certified. I'm like, what? Like, really? Like that caliber? Yeah, that caliber entrepreneur. When you see the vision and you get past, I mean, it's always a journey, but there's these transitions. Some of you are ahead of me watching this. Some of you are just right at this cusp. It's going to speak right to you and tell you that you're doing the right thing, because it is a system. It is a process of leadership and growth. So as I got to this place in my career, I'm like, how can I make an impact? And how can I be fulfilled in these last 50, unless you're, I just spoke at an event with Dave Asprey, 100, and I would have 130 years left. I'm going to give myself 60, right? And that'll still put me at well over 100. So that's just me. But anyway, just throwing that out there. These final years, these best years of my life, I keep
Yeah.
reframing that. How am I going to really, like what we talk about, have that reach, right? How can I have that exposure? How can I leave something where it's literally changing someone's life and it doesn't cost them anything? And social media really was that route. I had Warren approved stamps that people would give me because I'm just really anal about this stuff. I'm not fearful of it. I just freaking love it. I love dallying in my health. And I'm not like major crazy biohacker injecting stuff. I have had stem cells. I have done PRP. I've done one vampire thing,
Facial.
whatever,
Yeah.
facial for like anti-aging. I've done peptides, but it's not my life. I mean, I do have a cold plunge. I do have a hot tub. I do have a sauna. I do have a red light. I have red light right here. I can turn it on, right? So I do those things to optimize. However, I'm not scared of what this body can do. I think it's super healthy, can handle a lot, but I love that most of the world doesn't know this, and I get to educate and see massive feedback. Wow, what I'm doing in these last 60 to 130 years is going to be super impactful.
Yeah, so that sums up a little like the tip of the iceberg as far as the things that I know about you as an entrepreneur. Like you've had your hands in significantly more than just the non-toxic dad brand. But let me just tell you something, and then I want you to speak about it. You very graciously invited me to a party you were having, and I came there not knowing pretty much anybody else there, just maybe a few people. But I got there in your house, and I sat there, and this girl came over to me, this young girl, and it was your daughter. And she literally walked right over to me, not knowing me, put her hand out, introduced herself, asked me who I was, shook my hand, said, "Oh, yes, I know who you are. My dad's talked about you." And then we had a wonderful adult conversation, like super intelligent, made me feel very comfortable, which most adults wouldn't make you feel when you go over to a house and if they don't know you. And then she left. And not long after that, maybe a few minutes after that, another young girl came over and did the exact same thing. We sat down, we talked, such wonderful young girls. So how do you go from building great companies, like the 1,000 plates that you need to keep spinning to keep a company going, to build a large team of really great employees like I've met inside of your company, and also doing it in a way that you still have a major strong family bond, wonderful family values that mold these children into such well-mannered kids?
I married well would be
Ah, that's
the
a short answer. That's
I mean,
great.
that is a short answer. I mean, but I was deliberate. I married later in life, so that is part of the answer. Like I didn't marry, you know, um, you know, I was attracted to Rebecca, but I didn't get sidetracked on things. I looked at my values
Hmm.
seriously. Like what was the most important? Attraction was at the bottom. It was a non-negotiable, but what were all the values? Where do we align? And trust me, there's enough challenges in any marriage, and I've had them all, right? That if you're out of alignment on too many things, like the the vac schedule or natural health or too off on religion and all that stuff, it can create more friction than you need, right?
Hmm.
So I think that was key. And I did marry for love. And I married for family. I married for, what her values were the same. We wanted to raise an amazing family. I was sick, so I wasn't able to have kids earlier in life because I was too sick to get married. So I was in a super thankful, grateful state. And I was like, wow, the best juice in life, bro, is my children. I get more, um, we can use a word like dopamine and serotonin from my children, far more than I even get from growing businesses.
Hmm.
And you get a lot of, and then as you move as a leadership, is when you're serving and giving, that gives you a higher level of satisfaction. So that was the base, right? And then making a lot of mistakes along the way, like we all do as entrepreneurs, listening to your wife. She's repeating the same things over and over again. You're ignoring them to the point where she has to literally almost punch you in the face to get you to listen, right? Before the damage is too great. But listen to your wife. She's not trying to hurt you typically. Listen to your children. They're not trying to hurt you. They want you to experience what they experience. They want you around, right? They want you to cheat on work for a season of your life. So I think the more I listened to my family and didn't look at it as like, you're stopping me because I'm providing. And we'll always come up with excuses and reasons why we can't improve. Our brains, especially entrepreneurs, we have so many responsibilities. It's easy to blow off your family and come up with excuses why we can't grow in our family. But then once the switch turns, you start to balance that well, right? You start to realize, wow, then you see fruit from that. You get a good positive feedback loop. Then you realize the strength of your family is the strength of your organization. They're they're in the same place. The more you strengthen your family, the more your organization strengthens, because it's your second family, if not very similar, right? So as you become a better leader, you'll have the same skills that you apply at home, right? No one wants to be told what to do. Neither does your kids, right? Same exact thing. They want to be taught. They want you to come alongside them, and they want to make mistakes and learn and grow on their own, right? They don't want to be told what to do. They don't need to be yelled at. They already know when they make mistakes. So that reactive nature that we have as an entrepreneur in leadership, not all of you have that reactive nature. I'm high strung, probably too cortisol at times. I used to be that way, and now I'm really good at that in business. I haven't perfected that in my family, but I'm working on it. So my business, I'm doing really great. Here, I still need some growing to do. And the fact that you're even thinking about this as an entrepreneur means you're a badass parent. You're a good husband. So just stay the course. And so many entrepreneurs, I talked to an entrepreneur the other day, they're having a little bit of trouble in their marriage. And I had them at an event. Anyway, I don't want to expose who they are, but I had him come into my hotel room, and I helped him by yelling at him, right? Because his wife did something, and he's like, "Oh, she." I'm like, I did a Dave Chappelle. I'm just like, what did you do to deserve that, right? And so I put it back on him. Aha moment, really helped him, and it came in and it really reflected well on the decisions they were making moving forward. They're back together, they're thriving, they're growing, they're learning, they're using that negative experience to increase and grow their marriage. Just like in our business, we have this big, like, we lost our merchant account, and that forces us to become excellent at merchant accounting, and your mids and your banks and your processors. And then you lost $1 million, but you gained 10, right? So because you learned that lesson. And I think anytime something bad like that happens in your marriage, you better quickly turn that mistake into a benefit inside of your life. And by making good decisions, by taking full responsibility. So I was able to coach them on things that I'm doing. And what we realize is we think entrepreneurs, especially, we're worst enemy. We think that we're screwing up so bad in our relationships and our business. That's why it's good to be watching a podcast like this to say, hey, you know what? We're all having those same challenges, right? We're all struggling, and we're all working to get better. And that's what matters. Is your heart humble? Is it centered? Are you trying? Are you doing the right things? Are you taking the time to serve your employees, but first serving that family unit, which is the foundation of a great business?
Yeah, I think I'm glad you came right back to that, because I was going to go back into something that you said, which I think is so amazingly vital. My kids empower me to be a better entrepreneur. And there's a lot of people, a lot of the executives inside of my companies, they go through this training stage inside of their own brain where they believe that when we go through growth in our companies, they need to take time away from their family in order to do more work. And I am always forcing people to, even during growth mode, take the time with your families, because when your family bond is strong, then you come back significantly more refreshed, more creative, and you're a better team member for us, or a better entrepreneur if they're like you and I. So I think time with kids gives us the ability to have that downtime that we need, but it also makes us so much more creative. And my kids are teens, my son is just outside of the teen now, but that mindset gives us the ability to talk with them and actually see life, like see the world through their eyes, see how they interpret the things that we say through their eyes, see how it impacts them. Because by going through that learning curve ourselves as entrepreneurs, we get a chance to then learn more about our team members in business and our customers and our prospects and everything else that we do to build our brands.
Yeah, their marriage and your children are some of your best teachers for sure,
Yep.
right? And it's neat to see that's like, if you have this bad quality and your kids, or communication style, your kids will like pretend like they're mad at you, or they may sound like you're disrespectful, but they're not. You just didn't give them all the information they needed to understand what you're trying to explain.
Yep.
And as entrepreneurs, we quickly judge. We're like, they didn't understand. What do you mean you don't understand? You didn't provide clarity, right? and you didn't teach your team to allow you to ask clarifying questions,
Right.
or you didn't train your team or your daughter to ask a clarifying question. So you could say, like, my 12-year-old, I'm like, instead of getting angry, which when you're really bright and fast and your brain does this, because we've trained our brains to be fast, right? If you're an athlete, same thing. You're making split, you know, second decisions in 1/200th of a second or of a millisecond. It's crazy. Like, you can hit a baseball, right? You have this little window to make a decision what type of pitch it is. Like, it's milliseconds, right? And
Right.
that's how our brains are made. And the better you get at that, actually, the more successful you become, because it's about making fast decisions with this little, we'll call it AI brain. But you learn to ask clarifying questions or teach them and make them comfortable enough. They're not just going to be like, oh, I'm not going to say anything, because if I get this wrong, dad's going to be upset with me, and they don't want you to be upset. And all your daughters or sons, they just want you to love them and to be a part of what you're doing and be close to you. And the same with your team member. They just want to do right by you. They're working hard. They've chose to work with you. You're already worthy, entrepreneur. Like, you have a great team. So make sure you're leading them in such a way that they're able to ask for clarifying questions, that they're able to, so that you're approachable and you don't act like you're the smartest person in the room. The more you become a leader, you become the dumbest person in the room, if you will, because you're just asking questions and leading conversations so that the other individuals are getting the outcomes and the learnings and the growth. And, that's really hard to move from entrepreneur to visionary leader, if you will.
Give me three things that you believe you've learned. And this is, I'm going to try to word this very well, because certainly don't want any kid to believe that we are talking to them like an employee. Like, that's the
Yeah, yeah.
absolute
Oh,
antithesis of what this question is about. But three things that you learned in growing your companies that have made you a better parent.
like I said, listen to learn, right? Listen to your child, learn from them, ask clarifying questions to get to the root cause of their challenge, right? And, so that's really important. And then when you're asking questions, in all psychology, you gain power, right? If you're just running your mouth off at your children or running your mouth off at your team, they're not learning. It's actually devaluing yourself as a leader. You're not gaining power, you're losing power. So that's really critical. Two, uh, lead with your heart and kindness. Kindness wins, love wins, like these little simple bumper stickers. But if you come from a kind, loving approach, and so it's that thing, you hear it, be kind, right? Just be kind. I don't know how many times it took me to learn that inside my organization, because to us it is kind. I could lay into you, Chris, and you'd be like, Warren is being kind, he's telling me the truth, right? I needed to hear that, right? I needed to be held accountable. That son of a bitch, Warren, thank you. You treat another entrepreneur the same way, especially two dudes with masculine energy, right? A little bit of feminine energy. I'm working on it, getting better. I've had I just interviewed 27 people, and side note, like, they're like, oh my gosh, Warren, you're so present, you're so kind, right? And I told them this, I've been practicing that. I'm like, I almost brought tears in my eyes, like I'm doing it, like I'm learning to tap into that feminine, to tap into my heart. But dudes, we yell, we can get in a fight, right? And get the anger out and be friends again. That's actually a good practice. It's somatic healing, they say, right? Getting out that negative energy. But you can't treat your 12-year-old girl that way, right? She's not an entrepreneur. You can't treat your staff that way, right? Especially if they're not an entrepreneur, they're just looking up to you. So your words are so powerful. And if you're not being kind, it's hurting them. They're beating themselves up. And then that creates insecurity. Insecurity stops decision making. Decision making stops an organization from growing. So that's a good one. That comes straight from my heart. I don't know if that's in a book anywhere. Number three, I think getting your, like, when you go on a vacation, right, with your family and you reconnect, I think doing ways that you and your team can connect together, like all together and everyone participating, whether it's kind of like a vacation, but having those times where you can come together as a family. So you need family vacations. We at least this year we didn't even take our typical. We typically take 2 to 3 week trips, but we're going to be going to Italy this next summer for a month or maybe two. Um, and but when we take those retreats, I reconnect with my family and we get back to the heart of who we are as a family. I think you need to do a retreat with your team so you're one on one and you're feeling each other and they're feeling the mission and the purpose because they're not working for money. Most people, like, they need to be equally rewarded for the value that they bring and the results in a results driven organization like ours, but they need to see that your heart's right, right? That you're doing this for the right reasons. No one wants to work for at least in the companies that I want to be part of. I don't want to work for someone who's doing this crap for cash,
You're right.
right? And to have a nice house and drive a nice car. That's not, then everyone's doing it for money, and that's no fun, right? That's no fun for the organization. It's no fun for you. So if you're a visionary, heart-centered leader like Chris and I are, and you actually really believe in what you're doing ethical e-commerce. You're not going for money grabs and all that silliness. And again, if you're doing that, it's just the process. That's where you're at. I'm not yelling at you. I've had those thoughts and experiences as well. But as you mature and grow and age and you realize your value and you realize your brilliance and you don't have to prove anything anymore, those less than ethical things you may be doing to get ahead, you'll definitely learn from them and you'll be like, I don't want anything to do with that anymore, right? And so I think that happens. I only say that just because I know that good organizations really see the bigger mission and vision, and when you spend time together, that makes a big difference. So spend time with your team in this remote world like I am. We at least get together once, if not twice a year.
Yeah, that's amazing. So if I were to sum those up, it's listen to learn, love wins, annual retreats or annual,
Spend time, intimate time with one
yeah.
another.
And you said something else, which I think is either a number 4 or it's mixed in here, and it's choose your words carefully, because your words have a massive impact on your children. They have a massive impact on anybody, your team. And I think sometimes if we stay in our entrepreneurial brain, often our brain as entrepreneurs is working 3, 4, 10 moves ahead. And in order to have great relationships, you have to use the word that you were talking about before, be present. So if people believe that you're thinking multiple moves ahead, which we have to do in business, and often we have to do it in every area of our life. But when you're talking to somebody, they should never feel that way. They should feel like you're present. And the absence of that ruins the relationship, whether it's with your kids or with your employees or with anybody.
Yeah. And that balance is what you're learning in your business, and you're testing here and you're testing at home. Like, and again, they're
Right.
separate, they're different, but the skills, the emotional skills, the language skills, there's a lot of overlap, right? And you're typically, it's easier with your employees because you're not going to get away with it, right? At home, you can get away with it. You can get away with making mistakes a lot more, and it shouldn't be that way. So I'm not, you know, I'm just saying that's like, you can get away with it. You shouldn't be that way. You need to
Right.
be congruent in both, but open and honest. I'm not way better. I'm much better, and I'm growing and getting better here. And my wife is Rebecca is getting better and better, right, at leading me in this area because she's really good at it. So
Mm-hmm.
she doesn't. So one thing I shared with this couple the other day, it's like when your couple does something wrong, and I think the example they gave me is, um, the partner wasn't good at disciplining the kid and having boundaries, right?
Okay.
So I asked the question. I said, "How many times has he done that?" Well, he always does that. And you're still reacting the same way and just crushing him, right? Well, yeah, because he's not putting boundaries. That's not good for our kids. I said, first of all, if someone's doing the same thing over and over again and you're still getting mad about it, then you're not expecting them to be who they are. That's who he is. He has a strength there. He wants to go about it in a more relaxed way, and you have want more systems and boundaries, which is good too. So your job isn't to keep telling him everything he's doing wrong. It's to help encourage him, say, hey, hun, just reframe it. Hey, hun, this is what my wife does to me. I'm just using what she does to me. It's like, hey, hun, you probably, we need to set boundaries and be on the same page because we're a team. And so let's see how when this comes up, and maybe it's because you're busy at work and they interrupted you and you just kind of brushed it off, but let's make sure we're on the same team. So next time, can we handle it like this? So you ask a question. And then now you guys are moving ahead instead of him. He wants to be a good dad. He thinks you're a great mom. He's like, yeah, you are a better mom than me. She's like, freaking never heard that. He's like, he's like, oh, maybe I should be more encouraging. So just out of the, and I'm not a therapist, don't take this, I don't have a license, but these are just basic things. And I've learned them through my wife training me in her strengths, our growth and challenges in our marriage, and our growth and challenges in our business. But these are beautiful skills. No one wants to be beat down, right? And so you can ask them a question. How can we do this better? This was a bad exchange. We got to be on the same page to raise our kids in a way that there's boundaries, yet there's opportunity to make mistakes, and we're not beating them down so they can still be creative, and it's not this over parenting, all this stuff. Great book, by the way. I think everyone should read as a parent. I love a lot of it, not everything, but a lot of it. It's called Hunt, Gather, Parent. It's a freaking fantastic book that can probably bring you guys back on the same page, because in a world where we're going to the extreme of the unparenting, right, and the unschooling, which is kind of the side we were moving towards, versus the heavy-handed discipline we wanted to get away from, because a lot of folks my age, we were heavy-handed disciplined. I got the strap, not necessary, right? Children they need consequences. I still believe that. So that's the unparenting. There's no consequences at all. Like, you never give consequences. Like, no, kids need some of that.
Of course.
But there's this tradition of how tribes parented, and their kids just want to do things. They get, just like I was saying earlier, we realize that they get from service, they get a much higher sense of accomplishment. They get a sense of belonging, and they get, again, the God-given dopamine spike of being in a place of service, because there's no higher level of healthy dopamine or healthy connection, right? And so anyway, I'm going to stop there.
Yeah, well, you definitely didn't. It was all gold. You didn't have to stop. It was amazing. But in order to get there, I think there's kind of some hacks, and I hate to use that word, but it's very good for this particular thing. Hacks for entrepreneurs. I'm gonna ask you for one, but while you're thinking, I'm gonna give you one from me. So
okay,
what I would say, the number one hack is for entrepreneurs to be better parents. And between you and I could probably spend 3 or 4 hours just going over different things or tools that we use as entrepreneurs to be better parents. But one that comes to mind immediately for me is buffer time. And I remember when I spent the great majority of my time in an office, like meaning I woke up and I went to an office and then I came home and spent time with the family. There was this magic time where I could literally turn off my brain, had a 35 minute drive from my office to my house. So I had that extra time. And then I sold that company. And after I sold that company, I was working from the house. And I remember coming out of my home office multiple times. And as soon as my kids heard the door open, that was their time to jump and just say, Dad, Dad, Dad. So I might be going out of my home office to go to the bathroom in the middle of a meeting, or just like with 1,000 things in my head. And they would immediately come as soon as they heard the door open, or they would just walk in sometimes. But then there was no buffer time. And because there was no buffer time, it was a bit crazy. So I've been through multiple evolutions of this, and a lot of my time now, the great majority of my time, I'm very blessed to be able to work from a house, right? So I'm in my house. But I still make sure that there's buffer time. I make sure that after my last meeting or after the last thing that I do in the office, I get my brain straight. I relax a little bit. I breathe, whatever I need to do. It's only going to take me a few minutes, maybe 10 or 15 minutes. Before then, I actually interact with my kids, because I want to be fully present with them and I don't want there to be any of that overflow. And before you go, I read this thing just recently about cortisol
Hmm.
and how the amount of cortisol you have comes there's an it comes out of your skin. So it actually infects the people around you. Your
It sure
stress
does. Yeah.
level, your stress level is exuding from you. And the and I forget what the distance is basically, but there's scientific studies around this, and I apologize, I can't cite them right now because I just read this the other day and I forget exactly where I read it. But it was amazing to hear how if you're super stressed out around your team in business, they'll feel it. Even if you're faking it and you're saying, all right, I'm not going to show them that I'm stressed, they still will feel it because it's in your blood, and that comes, you emit that. Like anything that's in your blood does come out of your skin. But with your kids also, the exact same thing. You can't really fake it. So you really do, at least in my life, I really do need to get my brain patterns back down, meditate, breathe, things like that, so that I am showing up 100% for them.
Yeah. But did you just labeled why my wife kicks me out of the house if I bring that in? She's like, your energy's bad. Get out until you have it right, because you're not going to disrupt what we have going on here. We have a good day. You're not right. Get out. And I'm like, you're right. I'm out. You're right. I'm not calm yet. Get out of Dodge. And
Yeah.
it'll destroy a company, as well. It'll destroy a family if you bring in that stress. Maybe not destroy it, but it'll definitely impede the growth of the home life. It'll impede the growth of your organization. As you know, in leadership, in growing companies, like truly going to scale, it's all about company culture, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's all it is, right? It's bringing a team together with unique skill sets that check off the different boxes, measuring their results, rewarding those results, and that everyone just stays in their lane and does a great job, right? And they love it, and they're not being pressured to do it. They're not saying the world's coming to an end if we don't meet this deadline. Elon's an interesting leader, but I loved what he says in some of his interviews, that he used to sleep on the floor, where his workers were, right? Just to show them it's like, hey, I'm not any better than you, and I'm on your level, and we're doing this together as an organization, and we're going to win. And you're working hard, and I'm working hard alongside you. That servant leadership style. Um, so you're right on that. And then my wife, the other mistake along that same lines is, you're not allowed. We're making a rule. You're not allowed on the phone when you come home, because all the time I was on my phone when I came home. The kids were excited to see me, and she's like, Warren, you destroy that moment those kids have, right? You're
Wow.
just destroying it, and you're destroying. I'm excited to see you, and you're coming in on your phone, and you're just squandering and squashing and making that phone and that phone call. It's okay that you need to finish up a call because you're trying to be effective and efficient, but just wait until you're done, then come in, take a break, be present, and let us celebrate you when you come home. It's going to be better for you. It's going to be better for us. So again, going back to my first point, I chose wisely when I got married. My wife is loving, kind, but she's strong enough to uh, tell me kindly most of the time how I can become better as a human. So another one, this is good for inside your home and especially in your marriage, but also the 100% applies at work, because at work we blame, right? It's this person's fault. It's that person's fault. It's always your fault, right? So full self responsibility. You're the one that hired that person. You're the one that allowed that. You're the one that didn't check that. You're the one that didn't have a system in place. You're the one that didn't hire the support that they need. You're the one that didn't give them the support that they need. You didn't give them the training, the education. So it's ultimately everything that goes wrong inside of your organization is whose fault, Chris?
Yeah, exactly. You just said his name. In my
Yeah.
organizations, it starts at the top. It's my fault, and
Yep.
that's okay. I'm okay with accepting the blame, and I'm okay with giving credit for all the wins, because I believe that that's what builds culture, and that's really the truth in the heart of
Yeah.
everything.
When you grow a real organization, it will be the truth, right? All the mistakes will be yours, right? And all the wins will be your team's. And then you can grow and scale. There's no other way to do it. And that applies to your home. if things aren't going well with your wife, take responsibility. Don't take don't take responsibility for her stuff, right? Necessarily, if she's out of line, right? Um, Acknowledge it and say thank you. Thank you for sharing that with me, and I understand that. I disagree with you on this. I agree with you on everything else you're saying. I probably caused you to act that way, and I'm sorry, right? You can do it better than this. There's better ways to say this. Read some books, go to a therapist. There's better ways to frame this all. But essentially, you got to only own your own stuff, and don't take on the negative energy from the complaints and the nasty words that they may be saying while they're in emotion. Everyone knows when emotion's high, intellect is low. So they're saying stuff in an emotional state. Don't take those on. You're a good parent. You're a good human. And they probably agree with that. But in the moment, they're slinging stuff. Don't take it on. Take full responsibility for your actions, how you can respond. Don't respond emotionally back. You respond emotionally back. You lose all power. Same in business and negotiations. You respond in emotion, you lose all power. Someone attacks you, ask a question, you gain power, right? So there's this power exchange. And as soon as you get into motion, you lose all power, you lose all credibility, and you act like a dumbass, right? And that's not going to end well, both in business and at home. And when I started taking more responsibility for my actions and not allowing emotion to dictate who my response is, and became strong. My wife says this, and she'll tell you this testimony when you meet her. She's like, when Warren started doing that, I literally said in my mind, and these are exact words, fuck, I can't control him anymore. Right? That's so, and at that point, and that's the word she used. So I'm trying not to swear. We're both F-bomb droppers every once in a while, just every once in a while, folks. Um, that completely changed the dynamics of a relationship and was a starting point for amazing growth on both sides.
Yeah, so that brought up a couple of quick things inside of my head. First, with kids, which is, by the way, I did not learn this with kids. I learned this with my teams inside of the companies that we have. That we recognize people. We recognize when they do something good, and when somebody does something bad, we simply recognize them a little bit less, or we recognize what they're doing good so much that they just want to keep repeating what they're doing that's good, that's getting them recognition. And since we're not recognizing the bad things they're doing, they stop doing them because everybody yearns to be recognized.
Yep.
And translating that into a parent was a big thing for me. That was a huge lesson for me when I brought that home and I started recognizing my kids, which was at the very young age. I was doing that with them. The second thing is, which is really amazing.
I want to add some of that after you're done. I have another little thing to remind me.
Okay. The next evolution to that in my life was getting them to recognize each other. So it's to spend time on a regular basis. Now, when they were young, it was very blatant, and and at the dinner table every night, I would say, okay, to my daughter, I'd say, what's one thing that you really, or no, we'd always do three things. What are three things that you love about your brother? And then he would say three things he loves about her, and then we would go around, for everybody at the table. So everybody got used to praising each other on a regular basis. And then anytime we had, there was a long period of time in our lives where we had family meetings, which, sounds a little bit weird for a lot of people, but it was fun. We would literally get together for family meetings and we would just talk about things. And I would start by praising everybody. And then we'd go around and everybody was used to saying something positive about everybody else there, which I think was a huge benefit. And it taught my kids how to praise other people and to watch in the person's face as they're praising them, because it has to be genuine. It can't be the same exact thing every time. But when it's a genuine thank you for something, when you or I or anybody gets praised or thanked for something that we didn't even know people noticed about us, it's amazing the change that you could see inside of their physiology. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you. You want to say something about recognizing?
No, I mean, that I was just, entrepreneur. I was visualizing, all the things that I do right and the things that I do wrong and the family meetings and all the benefits. So I visualize everything like it's a storyboard inside of my mind as you're speaking. I'm lost in la la land, I call it. So I was just visualizing all those things, and the books like Family Meetings and going back through the dictionary of the family meeting, right?
Right.
And planning dates with your kids, and there's a lot of those great books out there. They're hard to do, right? I don't do them as well. You can get the shock value. You only have how many summers, I forget what they call it with your kid, 18
That's
summers or
the
something.
most depressing thing to think about. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's just this moment in time, but there's also the fact that they're strong, amazing humans, and as you continue to love and grow as an individual, they will come back, and you can get tenfold the experience even when you screw up. So don't ever give up on just yourself, believing in yourself, loving yourself, encouraging yourself, because this goes back into the evolution of that. When they learn, when your team, yes, they're doing it for recognition, but the scale happens when they no longer do it for recognition. They do it because they become proud of themselves, and that's some of the new psychology that happens with your kids. Even the language pattern, you say, man, you should be so proud of yourself. It's not that I'm proud. You can still got to say you're proud of them, but wow, what you did, you had grit, you worked at this. Damn, you should be proud of yourself, girl. Good job, right? She's like, yeah, I did work really hard at that, and I did get the result, right? So that happens inside of an organization. You go from a place of recognition, which is always important and a piece of it, but where the power happens is when, and where the dopamine really comes in, where the explosive growth happens, is when they become proud of themselves for their hard work, for their accomplishment, because it's a self-fulfilling loop. Um, and that's where, some of the tweaks that I'm making, with my kids, because there's even new psychology that you shouldn't overly praise anyone, because they shouldn't be coming to you all the time and like, oh, daddy said I did a good job. Like, they got to do it for themselves. And that's a transition through age, right?
Yes, it is.
Especially in an organization, they should be happy with their results. They live and die by their results. I'm not mad at you either way. It's like the results speak for themselves. Make a shift, learn and grow, right? And if you're not the right seat on the bus, my bad. I'm so sorry. I put you in the wrong place. Let's try somewhere else, right? And we move them into another side of the organization, and they could explode over there. But we're all learning and growing. And the real problem is I put you in a place where you're not getting that feedback loop. You're not. I put you in a role that you're going to fail in. I put you in a box that was either you were too big for or you were too small for, right? And it based on education. So it all comes down to us, the leaders, but everyone's usually trying, especially your kids. Your kids are always trying to do the right thing. Your employees are mostly trying to do the right thing, right? Mostly, but for
Yeah.
the people are still good. And your children are really trying to do a great job. They're not trying to hurt you. They're not trying to be bad kids, right? They're trying to get attention, recognition. A lot of the behaviors you're seeing your children, what I've learned, the reactivity in your children are learned behaviors. A lot of the time they're spicier. They're born spicy. Don't get me wrong. And I love that. That's fun. Like my middle and my 2-year-old and my 8-year-old, they are full on spice, and it's so fun, right? But they'll have a different role in life, right? But some of the reactionary behavior and the blaming, because that's what I used to do. I don't do it that much anymore, but that initial like blame others instead of taking full responsibility. So I act like I got it all together, and I don't. Guys, you're all on the same page. We're on the same wavelength. We're just talking. If there's a lot of guy audience or female leadership that's tasked into more in their masculine, you'll be doing this stuff too. But that reactive behavior that you're seeing in your organization or you're seeing at home comes from the top down once again.
Yeah, you said you said something that's scary, profound, eye-opening. The statistic of you only have 18 summers or seasons with your kids, which is weird, but it brings up a concept inside of my past, where a good buddy of mine told me he was taking his kids on vacation, and he took them to Spain on a yacht. He said, we're renting a yacht and we're going to, sail around Spain or motor around Spain. And I'm like, that's wonderful. What made you, go to that? Do your kids love Spain? He goes, they like the idea of going there. But in reality, this is a very greedy move. I don't have many more summers with these kids. And they both can bring friends with them. It's a very big boat, so they could have privacy. but I get an entire, whatever it was, 3 weeks or 4 weeks with them. Like I had got them locked in and we
Man, a
will
boat.
bond. And from that point forward, this is like a decade or so ago. From that point forward, every single gift that I've given my kids have been experiences where they love it. Like, my daughter and I just went to Rome not long ago. My son and I were in Hawaii a little bit before that. And we do things that are experiences so that we have time together. We get a chance to experience just one-on-one or just the two of them and me, an airport, flying, a new culture, different foods. It's all these experiences that make memories. And it's
Yeah.
significantly more than spending money on a gift that goes and sits
That's
in the
easy
drawer.
to do. That's like a donation to a church, that's easy, but to give time, that's what they want. All your kids want time and experiences, and you'll create memories that they'll never forget. That is the way to do it. I had something I want to say with that. That's a huge one. Oh yeah. So to that, right? Um, there's two things. You can't buy time necessarily, but you kind of can, right? So if you're chasing money, that's the wrong thing. You should kind of be chasing time in a lot of respects. Time with your family,
Right.
time with your C-level employees, time with uh, things that move the needle, time the things that rejuvenate you. So that's what you're going for. So one of the fastest tricks, and these are going to be for the younger entrepreneurs mostly, but the younger entrepreneurs are kind of getting it because you weren't raised with baby boomers who wanted to do everything themselves and didn't want to outsource, and hard work was the only answer, and hard work is the only answer, but it's different than how we were raised, because we automate things, we create systems, we hire correctly. But early on, and you have to get your wife on the same page, or your partner or your friend, or however that works, but you need to hire people to surround you. Like, we have an executive assistant, I have a personal assistant, we have cleaners that come to their house, we have help that comes to our home to help with our kids and give Rebecca a break because we homeschool. We'll bring in outside resources for homeschools. We'll bring in people to teach piano. We'll bring in people to teach other languages, because, and when you read Hunt, Gather, Parent, I just did a sale close on you. When you read Hunt, Gather, Parent, embedded command, another thing you want to do with your children, don't tell them stop running. You tell them walk, right? Because they'll continue to run. So this is the same thing. When you read this book, and you're going to love it, you'll see that we were tribal at one point, and it took a tribe to raise these children. Now we have these little secluded homes, and there's no help and there's no family. I have no family here. I'm living in LDS land in Utah, right? I'm not, I love the LDS community, but I'm not part of it. I'm not part of the church. So I'm not getting that tribe. They have tribe. And I just don't, it's okay, but I'm different than them, right? I don't judge it, but I'm not part of that tribe. If I had that, it would probably be a lot easier for me. So I'm literally hiring my tribe with great people, and we vet them. It's hard because you want them to be family, but they're still working with you, and it's interesting, but you can't be afraid to hire those things out. And this is how you buy time. Only if say whatever your salary is, right? Say if you're making $1,000 an hour, it's well worth paying someone up to $100 an hour, $150 an hour to do all the things around your house, right? So if it's plumbing, even if you work with your dad and could do plumbing, unless you love it and it's a time for you to meditate, stuff in your yard, because when we do calls, I always hear the yard work crew, right? You can do all those things. Don't be doing dishes, don't be doing laundry, and make sure, for sure, your wife isn't spending her time on that stuff, right? Have her doing other things that add value to her life, right? And so hiring and not being afraid to hire off those little things give you time to be the leader that you need to be, to spend time with yourself. So that's one of the biggest things for me. What I found, if I don't cheat on my job too for myself, I get mad at the organization because it's sucking the life out of me. It's demanding the life out of me. So I won't allow it anymore. I'm going to go in my garden, right? I'm going to take my shoes off and ground. I'm going to take my shirt off and get in the sun and walk around barefoot, right? Um, if it's a sunny day, I'm throwing a shirt on and coming back in because I just walk around all summer with my shirt off, right? Because that's important to me. I have to get in the sun. I have to get into nature. I have to work out. So I hire people to come to my house to save me what? Time. I train in my home. Physical therapy is done in my home. Massage is done in my home, right? Chiropractic, I drive to on Mondays. I love that time. I listen to some 80s music, take some time. And then, just to remind me of the great life that I had, and living in the 80s in a good time. It was so fun, I just have such fond memories of the freedoms that I had as a kid growing up. And so I just connect back to the things that make me feel alive and whole. And then I'm happy, then I'm smiling on the phone, my tonality changes. And so all those things are important. So spend money and buy time through bringing people to you not going to people. You actually earn more and have more impact.
So, which is an amazing lesson. How do you verbalize that to your kids so that they actually are learning about that for their future as well?
Oh, yes. Oh, for
Okay.
sure. Yeah.
All right. So let's go through some things that we teach our kids, and this is going to go deeper than the homeschooling that you and Rebecca do to the kids. It's going to be more life, like teaching them how important it is that we utilize our time properly. And often that means getting help. It's aligning with other people to come and take care of your home or take care of whatever it is so that you could build a business, so you could take care of yourself, so you could have family time, so that you guys can do whatever it is that bonds you. One of the things that I try to teach is how to bring solutions instead of think about problems.
Yeah, I love that one.
So,
Number one.
which again came from work, which I'll tell you a mistake that I made a long time ago in work, which turned into an amazing benefit and then turned into something that changed my entire life. I was talking to a buddy of mine and he said, don't ever let your team members, and this is going back, this is going back to 2004, 2005. So it's going back a ways. But he said, don't ever let your team members come to you with problems. That's going to completely waste your time and it doesn't make them autonomous. Like the goal is to get your team to be autonomous. So force them to come to you. Anytime there's a problem, come to you with 3 solutions to the problem. He goes, I don't allow anybody to come into my office unless they have 3 solutions to whatever problem they're going to bring me, which, by the way, caused a tremendous problem inside of my company. At the time, I only had one company, and it caused a lot of confusion because that's bullshit to force people to come to you with 3 solutions. And I learned that the hard way by the massive disruption that it caused in the company. But to teach people how, like, to become a better leader. A leader is much different than a manager. A manager will tell people what to do. Come to me with 3 solutions. That's telling people what to do. A leader will be a good question asker so that when somebody comes to you with a challenge, the idea is not to give them the solution, even if you have it on the tip of your head. The idea is to ask them the right questions so that you bring out the solution in them. And then you do that every single time so that eventually they get so frustrated that you don't give them the solution, yet you've taught them through the questions on how to get the solution themselves. Eventually they're like, I'm not even going to go to them because I already have the solution, right? But to instill that in your kids is infinitely easier, at least it was for me, infinitely easier, because when you start really young, they're brilliant. Like they change the way they think so significantly faster than like a 20, 30, 40, 50-year-old person who's been working for you for a year. So anyway, other things, like things that you teach your children that you think are super important.
I was lost in that answer, thinking how I could be better at it in the leadership skills. And I'm still running that movie through my head. And yes, I've done the manager stuff with my kids.
Yeah.
We focus on solutions, not problems in our family, right? Because we already know what the problem is. We already know we made the mistake. How can we do better next time? Try again. Yelling at your sister, just all those things. So we do that inside our home. I'm trying to figure out from that one, because at the high level, right? Because my CEO, when he was a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, he had a sign that said, if you're not bringing me a solution, leave.
Yeah.
But that's older. That's like older leadership coaching and training that, there's organizations used to teach that, right? This is where this all comes from. Like 50-year ago, management has definitely changed, right?
In a much better way. Yeah. But
it has.
In real life, when you look at this, people who don't do that, people who don't empower their kids or empower their employees, a lot of them do it because they want to hold the power themselves. Like they want to be the one who people go to for solutions, which is the weakest thing that you could ever do. And parents who do that, I believe, are, I mean, I don't want to say what I actually believe, but I think that they're bad. They're doing a bad thing for their kids.
Mhm.
But there are a lot of people in this world who, as their kids get older, they still want to be the powerful one in the relationship. So they try to force them to go to them for the solution, like constantly telling them, well, you could have done this better. Here's what you
Yep.
should have done.
Yep. The hunt gather parent goes through that. And that's,
Oh,
again, this
really?
is one of the big mistakes that I made. Um, one in leadership and two at home. And it's
Hmm.
been only over the last 5 years I've made this transition. So this is new to me, right? Some of the, some of the best coaching I ever got has been around this, because what happens is comes back to time. The reason everyone's coming to you with all their problems is because you trained them to come with
Yeah.
all your problems. So again, your fault. You trained them to be that way, just like you train your kids to treat you a certain way. You train your wife by your responses, the questions you ask.
In your
So if you want
actions.
freedom as a leader and you want to see your organization grow, this is the ultimate thing. Train your organization to think for themselves. If they're all you can get to 10 million, being the most intelligent, person in the room, and you're excellent at marketing, but you're stifling creativity. And yes, you're smart. You're so bright. Good for you. You're going to grow a small company. For the most part, there is exceptions,
Hmm.
but great companies have great leaders, and leadership has nothing to do with you having the answers. Billion-dollar organizations don't have that. They have the leaders, they're subject matter experts in every area of the organization. And I found I did that really, like, my kids were coming to me everything. And then I'm saying, why are you coming to me? And then it hit me. It's like, I trained you to come to me and bother me with everything and every decision. And every time I reprimand you when you don't come to me first, you should have came to me first. And guess what they're going to do next time? They're going to come to you first, and then you're going to yell at them for bothering you. So it's insanity what we do as parents, as leaders. And for me, at least acknowledgement is the road to recovery, right? I'm a answeraholic. Like I really want to always provide the answers, and I'm good at it, actually, because my brain loves problem solving. I'm really good at it. Like it is a gift. Um, but it's not going to grow a healthy family. It's not going to grow healthy leaders in your children. They need to figure it out on their own, and be proud of themselves. It goes back to that, right? So you can kind of short circuit those things, and it's going to crush your time. So, yep.
Yeah, and that I mean the moral of that story is that when you meet people, when you make people proud of themselves, when you get people to be able to feel proud of themselves,
Yes.
it bonds them to you in a tremendously stronger way, and it turns them into much happier people. But let's talk about some other things that we teach our kids. So you and I, you and I practice an amazingly healthy lifestyle, right? So you do everything from hyperbarics to,
Hmm.
oh, and by the way, all I'm going to mention are things that are in your house, just so everybody knows that you're a freak, just like I am. You have hyperbarics in your house. You have ice bath in your house. You have sauna in your house. You have the gardens right on your property where you could go around and get all the non-toxic healthy foods. You have a gym in your house. You have healthy air in your house. The electricity in your house is all shielded, so you don't have the EMF in
I
there, right?
shut I shut the electricity, so I get rid of all the electric and magnetic fields in my room at night. So it's a quiet electrical hygiene. Actually, that was a key for me, sleeping through the night. That fixed me.
So, which by the way, we should talk about personally afterwards because I'd love to learn that part. But you're teaching your kids this not just by verbally telling them these things, but they get a chance to watch dad do these things and understand that, well, dad's happy. Well, dad's successful. Well, mom and dad really love each other. Well, what are the things like your kids are connected enough to be able to put two and two together and say, well, mom and dad are healthy, and that's one of the reasons why they have so much energy, I guess, which is one of the reasons why they're happy all that they're, doing all these things with us. So what are some of those things? Like, let's go over some of the things that they're learning, either verbally or through your actions, that you think are so very important.
Yeah, I mean, there's tons of research that show that if you exercise with your kids, they're going to be more healthy ongoing. So We play, when you're in their gym, we let them come in there, right? We set boundaries, but they're with us. They'll
Mhm.
exercise with us. So if I have a trainer, it's not the intensity of my training is secondary to the fact that my children want to get up and exercise with us, like Tula did for a while, right? Um, and so if my little baby gets up in the morning, she'll breastfeed, then come in and hang out with me in the gym with the trainer. And my trainer's amazing, and he's giving her exercises to do. And can I give you a challenge? Can you carry this dumbbell back and forth? Can you do these squats? So we just integrate our kids into everything we do, and that's how you have to train children, right? You have to participate with them and at some level, right? And train them and coach them and let them get their wins, let them have some fun, right? Great coaches are that way too. You don't sit there and just hammer everything they did wrong so they don't enjoy it and they don't become proud of themselves, right? So I think that is so critical for them to experience it with you, do it along with them. And that's a big part of Hunt Gather Parent too. I was doing that part, right? Is so I say when I read the book, I'm like, oh, not that it's like all right, right? But from my perspective, it was when I know it's someone's right, is that you knew in your gut this information couldn't be right because it's really not working and it's super frustrating. Then you read that aha moment, whether it's about your faith or religiosity that you were just missing it. You're just like, I freaking knew it. Like I knew there's that answer is out there, but it's usually hidden and suppressed because somebody told you you had to believe this way, made you feel guilty to parent this way, made you feel guilty to believe this way. So you didn't get outside of the matrix of the four walls of a church that you're tithing hundreds of thousands of dollars to, or, to parenting that's not leading to successful families for whatever reason. There's great ways to parent. I think kids are resilient, so I'm not getting into that, but I'm going off on
That's okay.
emotional topics. I'm losing intellect here. So the the showing them and letting them participate in things like, so I completely cut out alcohol, right? That has made a massive impact because now, because they were talking about it, you're having a drink, daddy, you having, I'm like that you know what, that was starting to realize, wow, I'm training them that it's okay to do this, and it's a class 1 carcinogenic, it's poison to my body, it wrecks my sleep, so daddy's all done, right? Daddy's all done, and I've admitted that this isn't good, it's poison, it's not it's not adding value to our life. Here is the takeaway, right? For everyone watching this, my wife came up with this saying, and I think it's so powerful. Is the decision I'm about to make taking me closer to God or further away from God? And when you live your life that way, that how I'm going to react to my children, is that bringing me closer or further away to spirit, to God, right? To a spiritual connection, right? And all the science is moving in this direction, to that the connection between soul and spirit. The quantum stuff is really, I was on stage the other day and I shared this and everyone laughed. You can laugh too, but the woo woo is now becoming true, right? And the stuff that I used to boo hoo is now true when it comes to woo woo, right? I'm now Dr. Seuss. You can tell I'm a dad. So, is this decision I'm about to make going to bring me closer or further away from a spiritual connection towards my highest self that's connected to God, that's serving at another level, right? And so, drinking alcohol, is it really bringing you closer? Probably not. Now, if I go to Italy, am I going to have a glass of wine? You bet your ass I'm going to have me a little bit of wine, right? Am I going to indulge? Am I going to get drunk? I don't think so. And the reason, and people disagree with me on this, but at this stage in my life, I'm really this focused entrepreneurial time. I'm just turning 50. My brain is at its best because I've paid the price, I've made the mistakes, and I have the maturity to know that I'm not the smartest guy in the room anymore. And I'm looking to be a true leader, to have true impact. And I'm 50 and I'm still full of energy and life, and my testosterone is naturally high. I'm not taking TRT. I'm not nothing against that, but I'm doing those things. I'm red lighting in the right areas, boys. And I say the word boys on purpose. And I'm doing some of the natural things, right? And so I think that's with your kids, getting back to my kids, is if you're if they're exercising and they're healthy, health and health decisions and coaching them and showing them what it is to live a healthy, non-toxic lifestyle, which is my whole mission these days, is teaching families, most importantly families, through non-toxic dad, to live a non-toxic lifestyle. Exercise is part of a non-toxic lifestyle. Non-toxic faith and religiosity is part of a non-toxic lifestyle. So that's judgment. That's all those things, right? When that's toxic, that's not bringing anyone closer to God, including yourself. Toxic energy in your home, right? You don't want that, whether it's emotional energy or frequencies, EMF, right? Not bringing you closer to God, not keeping you connected. That's kind of the undercurrent of the non-toxic lifestyle. Then it comes down to, the foods you're ingesting. That's not, if you're eating junk, that's not bringing you closer to God, right? So it's a way to simplify a complicated subject. Is this decision I'm about to make at your current learning level, at your current experience level? You have to be honest with yourself. Not everyone is where you're at. So you're not judging. I'm not judging you if you think alcohol is okay. You're just not there yet. I bet maybe 10 years from now, you will be. You might not be now. You might think I'm full of crap, but I don't care because I wasn't there 5 years ago either. So it doesn't matter where you're at. It's just, this is the evolution and authenticity of Warren living a non-toxic lifestyle. And if you show that to your kids, they're going to come back to it. And that's been in the literature.
Yeah. So the non-toxic lifestyle, such an amazing thing for you to be able to impart onto your kids. I know my daughter watches your non-toxic dad Instagram all the time and talks to me about it, which I think is wonderful, because I love the content that you're putting out on there. There's a lot more, right? So you also practice great sleep patterns. You also practice getting outdoors on a regular basis, like you said earlier, getting your feet into the grass. So your girls are learning that. You also practice very healthy dieting, but not crazy, right? So healthy eating where it's enjoyable. So for your kids to learn that, it's amazing. You also practice drinking healthy water. We've talked about that in the past as well, right? So so your kids are learning that. I do the exact same thing. My kids grew up with vegetables and with clean meats. Like, they grew up understanding eggs are great for breakfast. Like, why would you eat just egg whites? Like, why would you not eat the whole eggs, right? So they question, what's that?
It's a big deal eating egg, the yolk. It's huge.
It's a whole, like, that's where the majority of the great stuff is, right? So the magic is found in certain foods.
This is not 80s weightlifting stuff anymore.
So, but for, like, when my kids go out with other kids and they see what they're ordering, like, we have conversations about this all the time. Like, oh, I went out with so and so, and here's the things they ordered. Like, I don't want, like, should I have said something to them? I mean, they drank like 3 Mountain Dews and a couple of Coca-Colas during the night. Like, should I have said something to them? And my answer is always the same with them. Like, I'm so grateful that you know these things inherently. And it's totally up to you if you want to open that conversation up to these friends of yours, but just realize that they were brought up differently. So as much as you believe in drinking water instead of drinking those things, or eating something healthy instead of eating the things that are healthy, as much as you truly in your heart know that that's good and you enjoy those things more, they have that same passion for the stuff that they're ordering. So they were brought up with the crappy foods or whatever.
Doesn't matter.
So if you're going to talk to them, just realize that you're going to be debating stuff that they learned from their parents, who they value. And you have to realize that you could do that. You could open up that conversation, but do it in a very lighthearted way and just test out the waters. And I wouldn't go hard on it, because it's an easy way to lose a friend.
Yeah, send me in. This is why.
Yeah, exactly. That's what you do.
Kids use me to the parents.
Right.
I met a lady at an event. Instagram is a way to influence and impede people. It's called incremental persuasion. That if you want to help someone, you can't just, if they don't see what you see in that moment, all you're going to do is create a wedge in that environment. So you can seed things and ask questions and incrementally get people to wake up to a new idea and a new. It's hard to change. We run patterns, all of us, right? Mm-hmm. I'm running crazy patterns every day. Some are really good, some aren't as good. I have lots of bad habits that I'm working on and shifting. My wife is now encouraging me to I'm beating myself up. And I want to go there for entrepreneurs. One of the places I want to end on is brilliance and believing in yourself and not beating yourself up, because I think that's so important. It's not the sexy, maybe it's not the viral topic, but it is so critical. Your spiritual health, your belief in yourself, and your belief in others. is so critical to that next step. It'll change. It's a number one thing I found in choosing a non-toxic lifestyle, which I'm so passionate about, that we're training our kids to do. And we're not judging others who don't live a non-toxic lifestyle. It's like, this, I won't say it, but say I believe a certain way in my faith.
Mhm.
And if you don't believe the way that I believe, you're going to hell, right? So that's not going to end well, right? You don't want to force someone into something. You want them, if you eat, non-grass fed meat, oh my gosh, do you realize you're sick and going to die, right? That's not the message people need to hear, right? We don't want to create more separation and hate and anger and pointing fingers in this world. We want to help each other with our gifts, and we all have them. Mine is living a non-toxic lifestyle. I'm darn good at it. I know how to integrate it, right? I'm getting better at other things. I want to help people in that area, and other people who may not eat a non-toxic lifestyle have other great gifts that they share with me. I just got some great downloads from some people complete opposite of me, right? If someone's conservative or liberal, well, I hate using those words, but if you ask questions and you care and you have a tonality in your voice, you have so much to learn, and we have so much to agree on. So that's where we focus, is that we find those incremental things. And to close the loop, it's neat. I went to an event, person knew me not because they knew me, their kid sends me their videos. So that's the sort of impact you can have through social media. It's like, yeah, my kid said we need to change this because this non-toxic dad guy. I'll take it one step further. Don't do it because I said it. Don't just believe, because half the crap out there, and I could even make mistakes. Even I try not to. I try to be as unbiased, but we're all biased. We all have confirmation bias. It's part of our psychology. But do it because you believe in your heart that it was the right thing to do, and I reminded you that you needed to do this thing, or I created a question where you need to go a little deeper. Let me check out what this guy is saying. And I've also found on social media, as a social media hack, is that if someone's yelling at you, not everyone is yelling at you. They're asking questions, and they might, don't attack back with that crazy masculine energy, right? Ask them a question, make them laugh, agree with them at some level, and then they come back and they're actually your friends. I've done that so many times where because text messaging or Instagram DMing or whatever comments is such a low form of communication. So
Right.
don't always think that everyone's hating you or disagreeing, and it's okay if they do, because they're teaching you, right? Just don't, if you're hating on me, I'm gonna delete you. But if you're having an intelligent conversation, you're not a bot using AI or some dude using AI to, you're getting paid by, some company, then that's the thing. Okay. I'd like to move on to brilliance, inside of yourself as an entrepreneur, and also that inside of your family.
Okay. Do you want to move on to that now? I have
No,
okay.
eventually.
Okay. Well, so we'll end on that, but I want to say something before we get there. Um, it's a question, and I'm going to prep the question first. One of the things that you've seen me do, because you and I talk on a regular basis about business,
Yep.
and often on those, not often, but every once in a while on those calls, I will get a call. Our meetings are on video, and then every once in a while I'll get a call that comes through. Now, I block all calls when I'm in business meetings, except for my children.
Yep.
So, and I pick up. Like, even when we're in a business meeting, even when I'm in a board of directors meeting, like, I will still pick up for my children, and I'll pick up and I'll say, "Oh, yes, what is it?" And we'll talk for a little bit, and then I'll let them know I'm actually in a meeting right now. Can I give you a buzz back? But I won't start with that. Like, I will talk to them for a minute, even when I'm in a business meeting. You do something very, very similar. So you and I have been in meetings where you've had your baby in your arm for a few minutes before Rebecca came in and
Hold her out.
pulled her out. But and then your other girls have come in also and said hello, like, during business meetings. So I think there's a very big challenge when people believe they need to separate business from family to such a degree that they would lock the door or shut children out. And maybe I'm wrong in this, but I think it's great that our children see that we work and see that we have built these companies, yet are still open to our families. Because I don't want my kids thinking that they need to get into a career and shut out their personal lives, because it will, I think that screws people up.
It does. Yeah. So I don't know who taught me that or who did that, but I think just as a rule, I used to get upset when they came in, and there's just a time in my life, say it was like 4 or 5 years ago, where I'm just like, man, I only got so much time with these kiddos, and
Mhm.
they take priority over everything. So there's times where I have a little sign on my door because I'm recording, right? So I have little signs. We create systems like don't come in when the recording sign's on, because it's hard to lose train of thought.
Sure.
But I don't encourage it, but I don't stop it.
Right.
And I'll let them come in. They love to meet you. They want to be a part. Like I took my daughter to, when they get old enough, take them to the events. Same thing happened. Like people are still talking about my daughter. Oh my gosh, the level of maturity. I make sure I come home and tell them everyone missed you, right? Because she's adding value. Like we're teaching our children and us to add value. So at home, we teach them about money. Like, what is money? It's value exchange, right? I'm giving value and they're giving value back, right? So every single money isn't this magic thing, it's a value exchange. And so when we're eating a piece of meat, right? We have a butcher that's involved. We have a cow that gave its life for us, right? There's all this, the sun, like this is energy equation. And so that's why we don't waste food, because there's value being given to us and we paid for that hard earned. And your dad, you see me like what do I do? You work, right? That's how we get money, and that value. Then I take that value and I give money for value back to us. So I teach them the level of valuation. It's a basic business principle that you learn early on. And the more value you add, the more money you make. And if you can add a little bit of value at a low price and you can give it to 3
A lot
million
of
people,
people.
that becomes a lot of money, right? So it's just about value, right? So anyway, I don't know why I got into that, but
Well, that's
that
huge.
shows that they're valuable, right? When they come
Right.
in, they're is as valuable, if not more valuable, than this phone conversation. Even though, say, I'm paying you all this money for this thing, it doesn't matter to me because they're more valuable, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Which is, this is funny. It sort of has to do with what we're talking about. I was talking to my daughter, and I talk to her often about the show that we're going to shoot or some content that we're going to make. And I said something about, well, at some point you and I are going to be talking. I said, oh, I'm going to be talking to non-toxic dad. I forget when this was, a couple of weeks ago. So I'm going to be talking to non-toxic dad, Warren, in a couple of weeks, and we're going to talk about parenting. So do you have anything that you remember, when you were younger, as growing up, with me and my entrepreneurial mindset, or anything recently? And she goes, well, listen, I remember a lot of things, but the one thing sticks out really right in my mind. And that's that, she goes, I don't know if you remember, but there was a bring your child to work day. And I wanted to take a day off and I wanted to hang out with you. And I told the teacher, that you work from the house. And the teacher told me that's not a real job. So,
They
and
didn't
so
let
I
you come to
did.
school.
What's it?
They didn't let you come because you didn't have a real job.
Yeah, not a real job. But so I brought my kids. Actually, I think you were at an event that I spoke at,
Yeah, yeah.
and I brought my kids to
Miami.
that, which was wonderful, because that was the very first time that my daughter actually even saw in person, like me actually on stage and doing some things. My son has seen me before,
And they're
but
both the same thing though, like look you in the eye, strong handshake, ask you questions, stay in their name. Like it was they're very impressive young people, to
oh,
say the
thank
least.
you. Yeah, they're wonderful. But what do you say? Like, would your kids know? Forget about non-toxic dad for a second, because that's like now all over the place. Prior to non-toxic dad, what would your kids have said if they were asked what dad does for a living?
Um, They non-toxic lifestyle stuff, like, that's really because that's what I live the most, right, inside the home. It would have been teaching people how to eat healthy,
Yeah.
providing supplements that help people live, a better life, like, so they they do get that, right? They wouldn't, they don't get any of the other terms and business terms, but it all centered around health, right?
Yeah.
Dad does, you know, health stuff, right? Most people think when they ask them that, even before non-toxic dad, they thought I was a medical doctor or something like that, but obviously not. So yeah, just in the health space, teaching people to eat and live healthy.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I tell my kids, listen, if anybody asks, just let them know dad's in venture capital because that's the easiest one of my companies to, verbalize. And most people don't get it, so it doesn't elicit a whole bunch of other questions.
Move on.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's get into brilliance, believing in yourself. What did you want to say about that?
Yeah, because I found something interesting. This goes down to schooling your
Yeah,
children. So this is a great parenting hack. I think uh, there's a lot of great schools today. Montessori method is amazing. There's Montessori schools. There's private schools that adapt multiple different methods that and they evolve and adapt if they have a good board and a good good teachers, which they usually do, especially if they're expensive, but they'll use the latest and greatest techniques. Some are more academic driven, some are more entrepreneurial driven. So you got to find your jam. But education in general, I just what I see in the literature, what I see experientially, what I've seen from talking to triple board certified psychologists and medical doctors along the way is when you educate your child and put them in an atmosphere where they are able to fail, they're able to make mistakes, but they understand how brilliant they are and the untapped, unlimited ability for you to learn and memorize and just the creativity, the expanse of the human mind is so powerful. And I think the traditional school systems, I think teachers in the past, at least with me, coaches, we really don't respect that, right? We've been talking about we only use 10% of our brain. I think that's a lot of that has to do with education, how we treat our children, how we raise our children. So if you want your kids to fully if you're an entrepreneur and you want your kids to go further than you did, which we all do, right? And I'm pretty confident mine are, at some level, whether it's loving more, or being more heart centered, like those are the wins. It doesn't have to be monetarily at all, right? Or it just has to be impact, whatever that impact may be. Is teaching your kids how brilliant they are and how unlimited their minds are, and that comes down to your parenting style, reprimanding too much, beating them down instead of elevating them and asking them questions. That has a lot to do with it because you can shut down that creativity side of your brain. And there's a research that all kids are geniuses. And then once they go to school, that goes away. So, and I've seen it happen where parents, maybe they're a couple generations ahead of me when it comes to parenting. Cause I think I'm just now breaking this out of from my parents. I mean, I was raised in a trailer. My dad was poor. We lived in a trailer. My dad didn't even finish high school, worked all the time, 7 days a week, two jobs, just wasted his uh, energy on getting to us to where I can have what I have. So now it's my job to do even better. And I've learned a lot, but I have so much to learn. So my children, one of the things that we teach them is how brilliant, how creative they can be and allowing them to explore. And that's why we have them in nature and being creativity. That's why we have them painting and doing the arts. That's why we have them in language skills. And that's why we have them communicating. And, of course, we have them in sports. We don't have them running around and doing all the sports. My one daughter does, uh, one sport. My other daughter does the other. I protect what they do, but but it doesn't consume their lives, right? Because it's not about sports. It's about learning and exploring and understanding that if you allow it, right? And I tell this to my kids: if you allow the human potential to practice and grow and learn and get into flow state, into that connection between God and spirit and your mind, and just entrusting your superconscious or unconscious mind, your ability. So what's limiting me as an individual is me trusting my brain, right?
Mhm.
That's what's limiting me. That's my limiting factor, my health, and the trust in my psychology. Those are and they kind of go hand in hand. I'm still trying to unlock this. If you can unlock that in your children at a young age, they can memorize books. They can come up with ideas. They can help you in your business. They can um, communicate things at a level of understanding that you would never even imagine. They're so freaking brilliant, and that's what I drill into them. You can do anything. It's not like the parent that says, I mean, that you're so smart, honey, you're going to do anything. No, it's just like God designed you to accomplish great things. You have inside of you the ability to solve massive problems. You can memorize anything you want. You may not be good at math, but if you practice at it, you can be great at math. As a matter of fact, because you're not good at math, the greatest lesson that math can teach you is how to push through and prove to yourself that you can learn. So you're great at English. Frick English. Lean into math, because my one kid does great, one kid doesn't do as well. But what it's going to teach you is that, in fact, you can still be good at it, even though it doesn't naturally come to you. That lesson is worth way more than how
So
to do
much more.
2 times 2, right?
Right.
The lesson is, I already mentioned Tula's name. The lessons is that you come to the understanding that you can accomplish anything. And even when it's hard, your brain will figure it out. It just needs a couple more reps. So, and as entrepreneurs, as leaders, do that same shit to your team. I'm swearing now because I'm getting passionate. You have to teach that brilliance inside of your organization. You have to encourage that, because like you, like me, we've been told we're not brilliant. We've been told we have to come for answers. We've been told that the teacher says that you're dumb. You're on the short bus, me, right? You come from poverty. You're overweight. Like all these things that people say that these limiting beliefs. But the reality is, as leaders, right, especially your children, because they're born brilliant and you're trying to unlock brilliance in your team, you have to foster an atmosphere of creativity, brilliance, and understand the true potential of each and every human inside your organization, and especially your little brilliant children. Don't try not to. And I did it more so to my youngest, and then getting better and better and better along the way, how brilliant they really are, and encourage that brilliance so that they truly can have that impact far beyond the legacy that, so you can leave. That's the legacy you want to leave, right? You want to leave a legacy of brilliance. You want to leave a legacy of love. It's not money, right? That they don't care about that. Your kids won't care about how much money you left them. It's how you coach them, how you loved on them, how you encourage them to do great things, and they're doing great things. And they'll say, frick, that's because my dad taught me that I was brilliant. That's because my dad taught me that I can work through hard challenges. That's because my dad went through hard things and I seen him doing it smiling. That's because my dad started off this way, but now the neighbor that's being a jerk, they're best friends again, because I showed them, look, I'm going to love them even though they're being bad right now. Watch what happens when I continue to love them and smile on them. I bet I'll turn them back towards living an amazing life. And they get to see that shit. And they're going to do it more and more and way beyond what we can do. They're going to 10x, 20x, 100x the legacy that we're just now unlocking, at least for me, unlocking in the last 10 years of my entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah. So teach your kids about their brilliance, bring it out in them, but and do it consistently and genuinely. Because to go back to something else that you were saying earlier, it's the kids are your children, just like your team members or anybody else around you. Learn more from your actions than from your words. So you could tell somebody they're brilliant on a regular basis, but until you actually bring it out in them, and then they see it and they feel it and they experience it, and they do that on a regular basis, and you just keep doing that, when they see the consistency and the genuineness inside of you, then it becomes a belief. So they have to believe in their own brilliance.
Superpower. It's just like, any X-Men magazine, X-Men super whatever hero. It's like that belief is when we have superpowers as humans, right? And we're told that we're not. We're beat down to have those ideas. And the opposite true, like what you're saying, is like, if someone's not winning and saying you won, well, that's not a good feedback loop. It's like, you learned something, you made a mistake, no big deal, but you're not going to get the trophy for that, right? You got a learning. That's a trophy, right? It's not a celebration, I guess, but do you see what I'm saying? So there's a bad way to kind of create that. And you clarified that's not what we're talking about, right?
Of course.
We're talking about this day-to-day thing. And then when you say, wow, that was man, that was brilliant. You used to be, I mean, I couldn't come up with that. You should be so proud of yourself. How did you figure that out? Well, dad, this happened and that happened,
Yeah.
and then I'd made this decision. And the cool things, my kids are entrepreneurs. They're here. Since I came home, they did a business where they're trying to sell cinnamon gummies. They try to do a car wash thing, right? And they're always trying to, like, you know, and they're building the boxes. It isn't a process of them selling anything. It's like, we need to make a sign. You need to sit here to gain attention. Like, these are the things that they're saying. It's like, yeah, because they know human behavior, right?
Mhm.
They already know it. That's what marketing is. It's understanding human behavior and how to connect with another human. So my kids are doing all this stuff innately, and I'm not stopping them. I'm not telling it's a bad idea. But then I told them, if you really want to make money, why don't you wash mom's car? Because that's here right now. That's money in the bank, no marketing costs, let's go. And they watched it and they did a great job.
That's hysterical. Warren, I really appreciate this. This was amazing. I know this is totally not the things that you and I usually talk about. Like, you and I talk business. When you're with your team, you're talking about, reaching more people with your message. You're talking about health to your customers and to your prospects. So for you to take time out, to brainstorm with me on the parenting thing, I really do appreciate it. I know it's not the norm for either one of us, but this was amazing. Like, I got a lot out of it. I think everybody else got a lot out of it, and I appreciate the gold that you were dropping, brother.
Yeah, I would rather talk about this than anything, because I think
Yeah.
it's the forefront of what drives me as an individual, as an entrepreneur. I get de-energized sometimes when I talk about business.
Mhm.
When I talk about parenting, health, your connection to God, like, nothing fuels my day. So I'll leave this conversation equally as energized. I love when you talk about this stuff with me, and with each other, about our families, and
Yeah.
it's the greatest connection we have. More so, we have in common than anything else in business. And you're
It
one of the
is.
rare ones in business. I've never met someone as disciplined and as organized. And I knew it's a skill that you acquired and you teach to others. But it's impressive. I
Thank you.
am not there yet, but I'm working on it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And by the way, kids are the impetus for all of that, right? The
Yeah,
impetus for any success that I've ever had. We both will do more for our kids than we will for anything else in life. And our businesses, which I think this is one of the foundations that makes us good entrepreneurs, our businesses are tools. Like, they're just tools in order to give us the lifestyle that we want, in order to give us the money and the wherewithal and the personal satisfaction to be fulfilled and to show that to our kids, and to be a great, an actual great person instead of just a business person.
and
So
on top of that, last thing too is we get to, by our actions and how we're running our companies with that same heart, we're able to give that same gift to those who
yeah.
work with us,
Oh
right?
yeah,
So
absolutely.
so it's our family, yeah, but it's their families. I mean, of course, you have to take care of you first. If we're not taking care of our core, if we're not putting our own life mask on for our families, from our businesses, and not taking money so that we can live the level that we want to live at, to be an example and to give, right? So I'm not discounting that at all. I think that's so important, and it can be a hindrance in your life. Like, you need
Mhm.
to, you even say this all the time, you need to get a reward because you're making a lot of sacrifice, right? You are working hard, you are showing up for your team. Like, a lot of times you don't believe that, but you are, right? Like, as entrepreneurs, I'm not showing up enough for my team. Like, these are some of you are showing up enough for your team, you're not showing up enough for yourself, right? That's usually a bigger issue in entrepreneurship. But what I love about business in general now is that we take that same model that's I'm trying to run in my life, and I'm taking that same model and giving it to them, right? This is the model you should run. This is the success model. And we've had just a wonderful time with single moms, right? We've had a wonderful time, with a lot of our women leaders in our organization getting to a place of power and free. And that goes into a whole other subject of
Right.
America and how we get lost in things that aren't as impactful. But what we found is that's been super impactful in seeing their lives, we just celebrated two 10-year employees. They're both getting sent to Hawaii, right? Our organization is sending them to Hawaii for a week. One, because they put up with me for 10 years. But in general, no, they've just been dedicated, amazing humans. And we're saying, you matter. Take your family, go on a vacation. We're going to pay for it. Thank you so much for being part of our family. And then watching them go from an apartment to a house with a pool to like, it's just so fun, and their family and their kids. Some of those kids are in my house right now. They're one of my first employees. He's now an independent contractor, but I just love them so much. They're part of my family, and they're playing and vacationing with us. Right. So that it's just, you stop and you look at it and you say, what did you create, entrepreneur? You created that. Your mind, your mission, your life force was given so that all these families get to experience, and you want them to experience the same life that you're experiencing. And that, again, there's no greater feedback loop. And I'm living it right now with kids I get to hang out with. We're going to go to dinner tonight. And I should be proud of myself, right? I should be proud of myself, and so should you.
Thank you. All right, brother.
All right.
How can people find out more about you? Where are you hanging out on social media?
I'm all over
Non-toxic
the place
dad.
on Non-Toxic Dad. I'll be showing up in a lot more. I'm going to do a big podcast tour here. I'll probably launch my own podcast, Non-Toxic Dad, probably in October-ish, maybe November, or let's just say the first of the year. It'll be up and running in 2025. Yeah, so anywhere there's social media, Non-Toxic Dad, I'll be there.
Excellent. All right. Thank you so much, Warren.
All right, blessings, bro. Appreciate you. Bye-bye.